Welcome to our final module. This module is all about scaling your copywriting business. And it's just one session, not multiple lessons, just one session, a discussion of how to scale, why to scale, and what mistakes to avoid as you're scaling. And we'll start with this discussion. What do I mean by scaling? Not what most people mean, most likely, because I'm not necessarily talking about growing or multiplying your business by multiples, by geometric progressions, exponentially. I'm maybe talking about growing incrementally or maybe growing only to a certain level. Not necessarily licensing or franchising either. Although those are ways that many people recommend scaling. I personally think they're too complex, too many legal problems and potential pitfalls to run into, too much regulation. I'm not a big fan of these models. I'm a big fan of right sizing. Building the business to the right size for you, for what you want out of your business. Sometimes small is the right answer. Now, small might be $1 million a year, it might be $500,000 a year, it might be $100,000 a year, it might be $5,000 a month. You get to decide what the size means to you. But it's more about getting to the right size than it is to getting bigger. Bigger and bigger and bigger. Growing your business is not always the answer. Sometimes it's the problem. Growing your business can make it more complex, can make it more expensive to run, can make your overhead higher, can make your profit margin lower. So it's not always the answer to grow bigger. What's the one decision you must make about your business right now? Well, you could answer this in a lot of ways, but my answer for this question is this. What is the purpose of your business? That's the one decision you must make right now. For some people, they want to build a saleable asset, something they can sell to somebody else on down the line, cash out, and take the money and run, or take the money and walk, or take the money and ride in style. Whichever you choose, it's fine with me. It's not something I judge, but it's something that you should decide so you know how to go about building your business. If you're going to build it to sell, it becomes a whole different strategy, a whole different way of approaching your business, as opposed to a lifestyle support system, which is what most people in this course actually want. You want a lifestyle business that supports your lifestyle with minimum hassle, minimum fuss, great simplicity, big revenue, big profit margin, and the ability to work where you want, when you want, with whom you want, on what you want, all freedom of choice. Some people want a legacy, something they can leave to their kids, their family, something they can leave that benefits the world after they're gone. You can do that with a lifestyle support business. You definitely can. Some people tell you can't, but it's possible. You just have to engineer it from the beginning to be that way. You have to make your content evergreen. You have to make it marketable by other people than yourself and start building those systems while you're still around before you retire or leave this earth. Here are 3 ways that most people should probably not approach scaling, in my humble but accurate opinion. That's what MIMHBAO stands for. In my humble but accurate opinion. 3 ways that most people should not try to scale. Partnerships. Some of you probably are already partners with someone else. And secretly, you may know this already, but partnerships tend to be sinking ships eventually. Disagreements about how the business should be run come along and boom, suddenly you're splitting up. Partnerships are tough. I'm not saying they're impossible. I'm just saying they are much more complex and much more complicated, much more difficult to deal with in many cases. And even when you think you're 100% on the same page, people and situations change. Partnerships, in my opinion, are sinking ships. Don't get on board one. If you're on board one, make sure you have all your expectations clear with one another and you keep communication lines open at all times. And frankly, if you're in a partnership, I'd be thinking about how to get out of it. I know that sounds negative. I didn't say I would definitely get out of it. I said I would think about it. I mean, if your hero came along and said, partner with me on this project, it might be worth considering, but partnering on a whole business, I'd be very careful. Franchises. I don't mean buying a franchise. Well, I mean that too, but in this case, we're talking about scaling your business. Some people think they're going to scale their business by franchising their copywriting business as an agency, for instance. First of all, there's a difference between an agency and a franchise. There are many regulatory and legal requirements for franchises that I'm not even qualified to begin to talk to you about because they just scare me too much. I don't want any part of that. So my advice, don't do it. Licensing, which is almost like franchising, and that's part of the problem. It's just as complex, just as fraught with legal challenges, but sometimes you can get so close to being a franchise that the government decides you are one, and then they come in and you're in all kinds of trouble for running a franchise without registering it. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just telling you this is complex stuff. I wouldn't think about doing it to scale my business. For most people, it's not right. Notice I don't say for everybody. For everybody, things are different. Some people thrive in a partnership. Some people thrive building a franchise or a licensing company. Just not me, just not most people I know in the copywriting business. That's my humble but accurate opinion. To scale your business, you also need to avoid the middle class doom loop. What on earth is the middle class doom loop? This is the middle class, especially the upper middle class, the affluent middle class, tends to think they're wealthy, and they're not. They're actually operating from a working class mentality, which I'm not being critical of that. I'm just saying it's not the same as a wealth mentality. Middle class mentality, even the upper affluent middle class mentality, is centered on the harder you work, the more money you make. There's a direct connection between how hard you work and how much money you make. So obviously there's an upper limit on how much money you can make because there's an upper limit on how hard you can work. Bill Gates does not work 100 million times harder than me or you. He has that kind of multiple in terms of wealth. How is that possible? because he's not caught in the middle class doom loop. If you're in the middle class mentality, when it comes to a direct connection between how hard you work and how much money you make, you're doomed to stay in the middle class. To become wealthy, you have to think like a wealthy person. And a wealthy person does not work for their money. They put their money to work for them. And their money has babies. And their money's babies have babies. And they grow without the intervention of the wealthy person. That's how you have to start thinking. You have to stop thinking about yourself as middle class, upper middle class. Stop thinking about the direct connection between how hard you work and how much money you make. You need to disconnect those two things and figure out how can I work less but make multiples more money. That is wealthy thinking, putting your money to work for you instead of you working for your money. So what's the right way to scale a copywriting business for most people? Is there a right way? I believe there is. It looks something like this. Develop copy cubs. Eventually, once you've become a master copywriter, you've got a great income coming in, you've got money to invest. We'll get to that in a moment. It's time to start teaching other people how to write copy for you and take them on as copy cubs, your little apprentices. You think of them that way, junior copywriters. That way you can extend the amount of work you're able to get done because they do the bulk of the beginning of the work and you just polish it up at the end. Develop your own products, your own courses, your own teaching products, your own books, manuals, checklists, and you sell them. Those things can be sold without your intervention. They can multiply your money without multiplying your efforts. Again, you're out of the middle class doom loop when you're developing your own products. Copywriting without clients. That's where you're writing the copy to sell your own stuff. You're your best client. You pay yourself better than anybody else because you're going to pay yourself all the profits. Copywriting without clients. Highly recommended as a scaling plan. And finally, the ultimate scaling plan is to take the money you make as a copywriter and invest it so that it works for you. I mean, invest it in, I want to just cut to the chase and tell you what I recommend investing in. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm just telling you what I believe to be the best investment. And that is index mutual funds with low fees. It's a way to play the stock market, but you're betting on the whole stock market, not just on individual stocks, which I think is dangerous. But individual stocks not being the best investment for you. What is? I believe index funds, which are just funds that buy shares of every major stock on the market. They just index the S&P 500, for instance. So you've got shares of 500 companies, and however well the market does, you do that well as also. Most hedge fund managers, most managed funds cannot come anywhere near the actual market return. Do your homework and find out for yourself. If you want to know more about this, and you should want to know more, there are 2 books by Tony Robbins I recommend you read. One is called Unshakable. That's the short version, the game plan of how you do this and do it well to build wealth for yourself. The second book is a longer book about the same topic, but it goes into much more detail. I think after reading the short book, you'll want to read the big one because you want to know more. It's called Money, Master the Game. 2 recommendations I can't make strongly enough. A third book I would recommend you read, Financial Peace by Dave Ramsey. Those 3 books will give you a wealthier mindset so you can get out of the middle class doom loop and start thinking like a wealthy person. Scaling your business is about making the size of your business right for you. And I also think it's about taking the money you make in your business and putting that money to work for you in something other than copywriting and marketing, in investment in the marketplace. How do you take action now? What do you do next? Review this program from start to finish, from module 1 all the way to this module that you're watching right now. Implement everything ruthlessly. Notice what works. Not everything that worked for me will work for you, but much of it will, most of it will. But notice what works for you and do more of that. Notice what doesn't work and do less of that. And then wash, rinse, and repeat. I wish you much success. My prayer for you is that you profit in every possible way, prosper in health, wealth, and wisdom. And I can't wait to celebrate your success along with you as a profitable copywriter. God bless.